Welcome back to Que Pasa Nashville. My name is Christina Oakley, and thank you for joining us. I have Ashford Hughes Sr., who is really a new position, an Executive Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Metro Schools. That is a new position. Tell me, why was that position created, and why are you the man for the job?
Because we saw Dr. Battle saw there were different challenges that were faced in schools, a lot of inequities faced by many of our student populations. Based on the work that I had done within the city for the last 4 years in the mayor's office as the Executive Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the city, Dr. Battle touted me to come in and look at our systems and how do we create the conditions by which families are engaged better, how do we create the conditions by which we can address disproportionality and discipline in graduation rates, and how can we make certain that we are preparing our educators to understand what it means to be an equity leader in our district moving forward.
Give me an example of that.
So right now, we're going through a process of creating an equity roadmap. This is a 3 to 5 year plan to go over processes and strategies that we can go from right now, where are we at right now, where do we need to be, and what does the future look like? So we know that student voice is a popular and is a very important piece when we talk about disbanding the disproportionality in students. We know that family engagement is vitally important in student success, but we also know that equity within public education begins with a quality teacher and a great principal. And now we are producing toolkits, a guidance to help everyone get in alignment so that we can meet our mark to be a premier school district in the state, in the country.
Most of these families that are coming from out of the country that are here legally or not legally, it doesn't matter. Your children get to go to school free, whatever your status is. But they did not grow up having, I know when I went to school in Mexico, we went to school and we came home. My parents were not involved. Here in the United States, we want their children, the parents to be involved, to understand what's going on. How are those barriers recognized and dealt with?
So everything is about a process. So we recognize it, as you say, when we do extend invitations to families to come in. Some families, because of culture, you know, from the countries they're coming from, they feel as though, hey, it is, we shouldn't question teachers or really engage. Teachers are experts, but we try to say we're a family. We want your input and insight because we need to know what's important to your son or your daughter, right? So we try to do different things, more so than just a potluck dinner after school. Right, we try to come in and have cultural events. We want to come out to your community to participate in your events.
So it's a two-way street now.
Absolutely,
versus
it's a two-way
always
street.
Being a one street, which is probably what most of them grew up with.
Yep.
And so as we look at your goals, you know, you are out in the community more. We see that more than anything. One, we have a diverse community. Two, the projections of our census showing that in the year 2040, which is Mayor Dean's outlook, Nashville Next, you know, we look at the population 2040, it's 34% Latino, 32% Caucasian, 27% African American, and 7% other. Whoa, the minority is going to be the majority, and it's not going to be the African American, it's going to be Hispanics, but I consider myself Hispanic. My mother's from Mexico. Most people don't see it. Where African Americans or some of the other cultures are very obvious. How are you addressing that equality, or even the equality roadmap that I've been hearing about?
Well, one thing we have to address and make certain that we understand the cultural wealth of all communities, and what that means that when we talk about fostering economic equity and inclusion moving forward. We know the numbers that you just stated, like there's going to be a shift in the culture, there's going to be a shift in the way that we do business, and there should be that shift to make certain that everybody has equal access and opportunity to the prosperity that we see growing around us right now. Our goal is to make certain that we are establishing the curriculum that is rigorous, the curriculum and our teachers that are culturally competent and responsive to put our students in position to be successful to meet those demands in the future.
Are your teachers coming up the pipeline more culturally educated?
We're right now working on all of that. Equity is just as much about a process as it is an outcome.
Okay.
So we're taking the steps right now to make certain that we do have the consistent ongoing training to make certain that our teachers understand what that is, and that it's not just a check the box, but it is an everyday lived experience. That's why we tout making certain that our teachers are in the community, that they know the community.
And I know a lot of teachers travel to their schools and their children are in one school and they have to teach at another. I'm sure that's normal everywhere, but knowing their community is understanding the culture, the food, the obstacles on a lot of these. We were also talking about critical race theory. Tell me exactly what that means to our metro schools and exactly give us that definition.
So I would frame it differently. What is it about history that has brought pause to some people to say that we shouldn't learn about this? Critical race theory, the theory that's been around for over 50 years, really is just a lens, a legal lens by which we say that racism has been rooted in the legal structures and the foundations of some of the inequities that we see in our country. Right now, we do not see K-12 public education. There is this legal theory being taught. What we're working with now with our teachers is to make certain that you just teach, and we're going to support you. Now, we want to make certain that we follow the scope and sequence that the state curriculum board has already set forth, right? And it just stipulates that we teach history with an impartial lens. We're telling our teachers to teach, but we also are telling our teachers that we know that history is something that we can prove, things that we can showcase and show. And that is when we talk about how do we let students identify history through teaching it impartially, but then give them the mindset, the analytical thinking to decipher.
Are the teachers coming, are the newer teachers coming out of college with that being educated to them in college? Are the teachers being, I guess, educated as well? Is it a new freshness of teachers being educated on the critical race theory?
I think we're in a new phase right now, right? Post-COVID, post this conversation around critical race theory and teaching truth in history. And I think when we look at the teacher training programs, this will all be adapted into that. When it looks at MNPS, what are we doing to make certain our teachers are culturally responsive and culturally competent to teach a 70% diverse group of students? We're working on that right now. And it's going to take time. You know, we can't just think that you go to one training and you know the ins and outs.
And also I think, and I'm being, hopefully I'm not too facetious here, but it's not about, you know, enchiladas and paletas, you know what I mean? And they think that that's, and piñatas, because sometimes that is insulting to some, thinking that's the only thing in that culture, especially when there's so many of the Latinos coming from so many different Latin groups. But even our African Americans are Africans, not African Americans, and having to understand that history, it's an education for everyone.
It is, because as you know, history for the Black experience in America is more than Dr. King.
Right.
For the Hispanic experience is more than Cesar Chavez, right? So we have to make certain that we're embracing and understanding where do we go to find the history that makes us all human, and where do we find that history to teach our kids so as not to make the previous mistakes that we've made.
Do we have great leaders within our communities that are non-educators that can come in and talk about, because when I look at the Latinos, we have more and more professional Latinos coming in with Alliance Bernstein. We're having all the different companies come in here and, you know, grabbing them, that they're not have to, you know, that they can be a part of the community face that is not just the stereotypical face.
Absolutely, without a doubt. To educate our children, to get them where they need to be on the global perspective, it has to be a whole community effort, right? So that's another part of my job, is to bring in those outside of MNPS supporters, partners, to really cultivate the type of environment we want for our students.
So when we look at the economic and community impact of bringing in companies for the ECD, or we have a lot of opportunities for companies needing bilingual workers.
Absolutely.
And aligning that business with our diverse youth brings us more global companies, and we're talking like the Nissan, and we're talking about I mean, there's so many companies here that are globally based but have a presence here, and we see that more and more. Is there a demand from the community for that more equity?
Oh, absolutely. And not just equity to say we're going to give this young man, young woman a job. We want a job that pays living wages, that pays benefits.
So everyone's rising.
So everyone is rising up, right?
What are your challenges right now?
My challenges are we're still in COVID.
Yeah.
Challenges are we're still dealing with the amplification of the inequities from COVID. We're dealing with the tornado that was here. We're dealing with state issues around mask and not mask. we're dealing with a growing, diverse group of students coming into our schools.
And faculty and staff?
And faculty and staff. We're growing. The challenge of our faculty not always matching the demographics of our students.
But it's a goal.
But it's a goal, and it's an opportunity for our school system to become great, to be inclusive.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashford. You've been a blessing in understanding what's going on in our metro schools, how diverse it's become, and really what the steps we're taking to make it more inclusive for Middle Tennessee. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining Que Pasa Nashville. We'll see you each week as we talk about the opportunities and challenges Latinos bring to Middle Tennessee. Gracias.